What's going on, guys? It's Tom here, and this is going to be a bit of a weird one for me. I'm going to be honest. I've never really done anything like this before, and it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I generally don't really like talking about my own story because it makes me cringe a little bit. But I do have to recognize that I have been very blessed and very privileged in a lot of ways to have, I guess, been lucky enough even to stumble across a lot of the realizations I have through my life and circumstances, situations that have kind of helped me to ultimately create a life that I actually love. And I recognize how lucky I am to say that, and how that's something a lot of people spend their whole lives trying to find, right? That kind of sense of inner peace and happiness within themselves, which I never thought I would have, right? As somebody who struggled through most of their teens and 20s through major anxiety and daily panic attacks, which I will come on to, and, how I was able to get out of that. I was very lucky in a lot of ways that I did manage to find a way out of that. And, a lot of it probably was luck and stumbling across the right people, the right messages at the right time that allowed me to lift myself out of that situation. So what I want to do in this video is to really kind of break that down. And it's something I've tried to do for ages because so many people have asked me over the years, like, how the hell did you go from where you were, Tommy P back in the day, pissed every day, a complete wreck, to where you are now? And this, I know I don't, and please understand this, I don't say this, and I really don't want this to come across as look at me up in my tower. I'm a human just like you. I still have struggles, fears, anxieties every day, but they no longer rule my life. And as a result, I've been able to, create a life that is of my own choosing ultimately. And hopefully from some of the lessons I've learned over the years, I can, deliver some of that for you. Maybe it's just one thing, that you can take from this, one thing that gives you a shift in perspective or unlocks something or makes you see something a different way. So you can maybe approach just a situation differently in your life. And hopefully that provides you with some form of shift, whether that be overcoming some anxieties you have, whether that being able to create something you want in your life. Maybe it's just improving the relationship you have with yourself. But with all of that said, let's get straight into it so I don't have to waffle on anymore about this. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So I've called this Reconnecting with Joy, because really that's what this is about. And this is a kind of journey that I had been through with this. It's been about finding that place of joy, which really I feel like I never had before. I didn't even know what the hell joy was. I was in a place where all I knew was anger, like fear, frustration, anxiety, worry, stress. When people said the word joy, it was completely foreign to me. So look, before we go on, and I've kind of said this, but I really hesitated even putting this together because I genuinely believe that just giving advice for the most part is complete bullshit. Right. I always catch myself giving people advice when they're struggling with something, and then I just cringe afterwards because at the end of the day, I really believe everyone experiences their own version of reality, right? We're all living in our own versions of reality, and we all have to go through our own journey ultimately. But what I have come to realize is sometimes just the right message or the right story at the right time can create a very, very powerful shift in someone's life, as it did for me. So I'm hoping, some of this, even just one part of my story and what I'm going to share with you, can be that for you today. But just know that nothing I say in this is objectively good or bad or right or wrong. This is just my experiences. Okay. So just take from that what you will. And also, I really want to be clear here. This is not an excuse for you to feel bad about yourself. Please do not use this as a reason to beat yourself up about where you are in life, wherever you are in your life right now. Because here's what I've realized, like over the past few years, like every single moment we have, it's a snapshot, right? We never get to see the bigger picture. Like we might see a particular moment in our life and think, oh, what the hell is that? Oh, it's terrible. It's disgusting. And it just looks awful, right? When we look at each moment in isolation, but then what we don't realize is the bigger picture that it's painting. And I promise you, your life is more beautiful than the component parts that make it up, even if you can't see it yet. Okay. So it's the same thing, right? As like if you've ever looked back at something in your life from years ago and said, thank God I went through that. Thank God that happened to me, because I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't have met this person. I wouldn't have this thing. I wouldn't have this mindset, this perspective. Maybe you wouldn't even be alive today. There are always things that, in hindsight, it's amazing. But just remember, in each moment, we never really know truly, whether something is good or bad. Okay. I really wanted to also start with this as well. I don't know how many of you have heard of kintsugi. I think it's just such a beautiful expression for life. It translates, it's a Japanese art form that translates to golden joinery. And it basically involves filling the cracks in broken ceramics with gold. And these cracks actually end up increasing its value because it becomes unique, right? It becomes one of a kind. And I think that's ultimately the same with life. Right. It's the same with the lives that we live. We feel broken, we feel wounded, we feel scarred, we feel ashamed of those things that we've been through. But actually, they're what make us beautiful. They're what make us valuable. They're what make us unique. I just think it's such a powerful reminder of, any of these scars or wounds that you have. Really, they are the beauty, that make you unique, that make you who you are. And please understand this as well before we go on. None of this is about fixing, I hate that word, or improving. You are already whole. You are already beautiful. You're already perfect. All that's happened is you've accumulated baggage over the years, as we all have. Right. This quote, I think, sums it up perfectly. Absolutely love this quote. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. Right. There is nothing. This is something that I struggled with a lot on my journey, thinking I constantly needed to be more, be better, improve, add more, read more books, learn more, particularly when I came out of my anxiety and I started, trying to improve myself. I just got in this cycle. So I really want to kind of have this as a caveat at the beginning. Okay. So with that said, here's the kind of journey that we're going to be going on together today. So firstly, I'm going to dive into a bit of my story and the kind of breakdown. This is just the context. I'm going to try not to spend too long here because, again, I don't want to make this about me. I want to make this about you. But I do understand that, sometimes sharing a story can be very valuable to you understanding and being able to build some relatedness ultimately, because otherwise you're going to be thinking, well, it's all good for Tom, right? He's just always happy. He's just one of those people. He doesn't understand what my life is like. I've been to the depths, and so I think it's important to address that so you can understand where I'm coming from and really just how my life spiraled out of control there. Then the next step we're going to be coming on to is what I call the reset button, right? This is the kind of tools that I was lucky enough to discover that helped me escape from the depths of my anxiety. The next thing is the kind of realizations and principles and kind of, realizations that I built up over the years, because ultimately, I think our beliefs make up our reality. Right. And these are some of the kind of fundamental changes and shifts that I had to make about the world and how I saw myself before I could actually find happiness and peace within myself. The next thing we'll be coming on to is then reorientation. So how you can start to take back control of your life, your time, and focus on the things that actually light you up and bring you joy. And then finally, we'll be coming on to the three, what I call the three foundational pillars. I think without these things, without kind of having these things in at least some form of balance, everything else in your life is going to feel like an uphill battle. So just balancing these three pillars will make everything for you seem much easier, and it will stop that kind of life feeling like a struggle to feeling like you're able to more go with the flow and go with the current of life. So let's start by meeting Tommy P. Well, this wasn't quite Tommy P. This was actually Thomas back in the day, who then turned into Tommy P over the years. So I don't even really know what to say about, my younger years. I was a complete wreck. I mean, every picture you'll see me with, you'll notice that I have a drink in my hand in pretty much all of these. You'll see in this this picture here, I was, at one point like 19 stone. I don't even have a picture from when I was that heavy, but I was eating every day. I was getting through probably anywhere from like 6 to 8 cans of Stella every night. That was my go-to drink. And I was just a complete mess. And I don't know where it came from. My parents went through a divorce when I was quite young. And I think maybe, that combined with being diagnosed with ADHD and being taken off the meds, and then just having a kind of lack of understanding, and being told by teachers like, what the hell is wrong with you, and why can't you wear the focus? And I just built up this internal dialogue, and I was just very confused as a kid, right? And I think that expressed itself as anger. And that then just manifested into drinking and trying to drown out those feelings because I didn't know what else to do with them. And it got to the stage where I was literally drinking every day. I would be getting texts like this from my best friend. This is like a regular occurrence from my good friend Dave, like, where the fuck are you? Right? I would disappear on nights out. I just wouldn't turn up to school a lot of the time. I would miss friends' birthdays. People wouldn't know where I was. I went missing for like 3-4 days at a time sometimes. Even when I started my first job, I vividly remember this. For anyone that remembers these back in the day, these Glen's vodkas that you used to pick up at your local newsagent, I would buy these and I would literally have like half a bottle of this, or even sometimes a full bottle with orange juice. I would mix it with orange juice in the mornings before I got on the bus to go to work, just to get through the day. Right. And I actually ended up getting let go from that job because I called our area manager a very rude word, and I ended up getting sacked. I was just a complete and utter wreck. And this is pretty much what it was drugs, it was alcohol, junk food. That's how I escaped from how I was feeling at the time. But then one day, from, I was probably on God knows what substances and pissed out of my head, I ended up having my first panic attack, and it just broke. I snapped. I don't know what happened. I'd never experienced anything like that before. I always had this bravado, this front. I would have been considered very confident back then, and it just completely broke me. And I actually ended up in an ambulance being taken to A&E because I thought I was dying. I literally thought I was dying and having a heart attack. And after that, it was just, I was never the same. My confidence was completely shot. And that was really, I think, the kind of end of Tommy P, and this whole fake bravado. And then I was just left to confront the feelings that I actually had inside after that moment. They'd kind of risen to the surface. And this was just a day-to-day experience for me, right? This is literally what I felt. Just this aching sense of dread inside, like waking up every single day. And I didn't have, and I'd actually, at that time, after that panic attack, I stopped the drugs, I stopped the alcohol for a very long time. Well, I said very long time, it's probably about a year until I kind of started drinking again. But I think this is where the, anxieties were really able to come to the surface, because I didn't allow them to before. I remember in one of the jobs I managed to get after that my friend got me at the time, literally having to pull over on the hard shoulder because I was, having panic attacks just constantly. A lot that I remember calling in sick to work because I didn't want to go in because I was embarrassed I was going to have another panic attack. There were so many times where I had to pull my manager aside at the time and say, "Hey, I think I'm having a panic attack," and they would like quietly like usher me out the office so it didn't make a scene. It was so embarrassing, and I just felt humiliated, and I literally felt trapped in a cage, right, with these repressed feelings. Like this is a horrible image, but this is really how it felt. Like these kind of rats inside of me, just like eating away at me. It was a horrible, horrible place to be in. The alcohol was no longer helping. I was already drinking to blackout. I couldn't remember where I'd been, and I knew if I did more, if I was to drink any more, I would just end up probably in a ditch one day, right? So I had to find another way out, and that was the kind of the wake up call for me when I knew I had to press the reset button. So really, what this led me on to is having to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, who the fuck actually am I? Right? Without all the alcohol, the drugs, all this other shit. And this is where it really all began for me. And I started to see what a mess I was in. So as you do, I don't know how or why I stumbled across it, but I decided to try meditating. I think at the time I had heard, maybe I Googled it, that it was a, good thing that helps with anxiety. And it was an absolute flipping nightmare. I tried to do it and I just couldn't. I constantly felt like I was doing things wrong. I started to feel things I didn't want to feel. I couldn't get my mind to sit still. And it was one of those things where I thought, hang on, I thought this was supposed to be relaxing. That was my perception of meditation, right? I thought you sit down and it's all relaxing and it makes you feel better. And all that was happening is it was just, like there's literally like this monkey in my mind. Like there was some crazy shit going on up there. And I would literally drive myself insane trying to get my mind to shut up. And it just made me feel like even more of a failure than I already did because I couldn't do it. So if there's one tip I can give you, if you've ever meditated, if you're doing meditation now, if you're thinking about meditation, one of the things I learned after months of like stopping and starting with this, do not try to clear your mind. Like it's absolutely not the purpose. From what I eventually found, the purpose of meditation. I mean, I don't even know what the hell that means. I have the most crazy off the charts ADHD. I can't even imagine what having a clear mind looks like. Really, all this is about watching what is already there, right? Whatever that is. Some days it's going to be crazy noisy. Some days it's going to be not that bad. Sometimes it's going to be terrible. Sometimes it's going to be okay. It doesn't matter. But when you shift the perspective, and this is what I found, when you shift the perspective or the intention of meditation from trying to relax yourself to just doing it to observe, you're not trying to get better. There's no end outcome. This is the thing with meditation, right? And the big mistake I made initially, I thought there was an end outcome. But when you realize you're just doing it to observe, for the practice of observing, it then takes away that kind of stress and that pressure from it. And it actually becomes a hell of a lot easier. But look, it's not, meditation isn't for everyone. Sitting cross-legged, maybe it's not for you, watching your thoughts. So at the very least, what I can encourage you to do, something else I started doing, is just writing shit down. This is one of the things, my other coping mechanisms I had when I was sober back in the day was writing. I used to write a lot of lyrics. I used to MC back in the day. It's just one of the things that it is really, really helpful to just get those thoughts out, because ultimately, we've got to get this stuff somewhere, right? Because otherwise it's all going to be bottled up inside and it's just going to crush you if you don't get it out. So whether you do that in the form of observation, through meditation, and again, you're not fighting it, you're not trying to suppress them, you're not trying to quiet them, you're just watching and listening to them. If it's easier for you, write them down. But look, just you have to remember, and this is one of the things, this was actually one of the most helpful things I ever heard regarding meditation. And it was that it's almost this analogy of like, they're like clouds, right? Your thoughts, your feelings, they're like clouds. Sometimes there's big ones, sometimes there's small ones, sometimes they're dark, sometimes they're white and clear. But you have to recognize behind those clouds, the blue sky is always there. And that's you, right? That's your essence. That's who you are. The clouds are going to change every day. You don't get to control the clouds. As much as we'd all like to control the weather, you can't control the clouds. And I began to start seeing how some days there were lots of clouds, sometimes there was not so many, sometimes they were slightly darker than others. And, this completely started to transform my relationship with anxiety, because I started to realize actually I wasn't my thoughts. I could see my thoughts. And this was a really big shift for me at the time. Some of you may know this already, but this was a huge, huge unlock for me. And, even though I'd heard this all before, just practicing it daily over the years, I started to experience myself as that sky. Because the first time I heard someone say this, I was like, well, yeah, right, but I still feel like shit. It was only from consistently doing this every day for years and years. I've been meditating now for, God knows, probably 10, 15 years, maybe even. It was only after doing this every day for years, I started to actually experience myself as that sky, and started to realize that, like, experientially, I'm not my thoughts. Because one of those things, it sounds cool, right? You're not your thoughts. And you read it on a quote and you're like, you feel, all cool and nice. And then you're like, well, then you go back to being, anxious again. So it really takes time, and give yourself the grace and the understanding that, there's none of us are ever going to be perfect, right? If we were, we'd just disappear, right? We'd become enlightened and our physical forms would probably just evaporate and we'd disappear. That's not the goal. We're never going to be perfect. There's no, end outcome destination with meditation. It's just a continuous practice. This world we live in, it will constantly beat us down and tell us we're not enough. And, just having these daily practices just help us to keep our head above water, really. But if you are going to start meditating, you are going to start going on this journey, or at least journaling, just watch out, because, there are going to be days where it's going to be absolutely terrifying. And, in those days, you will probably want to stop, because you'll forget about that blue sky, right? And the clouds are so thick and so dark, you can't even see anything through them. But it's all part of the process of excavating, right, of removing this baggage that we've accumulated, of being able to let it go over time. And each time you do it, you'll get better at remembering who you truly are, right? You'll start to recognize yourself as that blue sky. And ultimately what this allowed me to do over time, over those first few years of meditating, was it allowed me to look inside myself, for the first time clearly, and almost like putting glasses on, right? And these glasses, through constant self-awareness and meditation and journaling and just being aware of your own thoughts and feelings, they get stronger over time. And it really is, this is the underlying step, right? If you're going to clear out any of this baggage, if you're going to go on this journey to finding happiness and joy within yourself, you have to first you can't clear out what you can't see. Right, so it's a really important step. And this led me on to my first breakthrough, my first big realization, right? Which was that I had always thought it was all about feeling better, right? I just needed to feel better in myself. And through the process of just practicing meditation without attachment to a particular outcome, I started to realize the goal wasn't to feel better, but to actually just get better at feeling. And what I realized is that I was demonizing certain emotions. And it wasn't always, some of the negative emotions, maybe I'd learned to accept them. Initially, I hated all negative emotions. But then there were some that I, was unconsciously making them bad. And it's really important that you kind of tune into this. Like, are you trying to get rid of certain negative emotions? Because that's not the goal. The goal is to be able to accept all of these emotions, because interestingly, what happens, what I realized through as part of this breakthrough, is that when you do begin to accept all of those emotions into your life willingly, and to be able to look at them nakedly and openly, they start to not have so much control over you. So it's a really interesting paradigm, and this can only come through, practicing, making that kind of self-awareness practice like part of your routine. But it will eventually come, where you can question, how do I feel about this? And if you do feel a certain way, choosing to embrace it. This was me. I was looking for all of the happy emotions and almost shutting off and walling off the negative ones. And what would happen is I'd end up in the cycle where I was trying to change my feelings, and then I'd feel disappointed at myself because I couldn't change them. And then I'd beat myself up about, oh, I should know better than this. I've been meditating for so long now. And then I'd feel more negative emotions, and then I'd try to change them. And it would end up in this perpetual cycle. So what did I do? Oh, I know. I just need to work on myself, right? So I did all the things, right? I started reading all the books, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and all the self-development books, all the courses, the ice baths, the breath work, the self-development forums, the 10-day meditation retreats, all the diets, paleo, keto, vegan, the therapy sessions, the morning routines, getting up at 4 a.m. And even though I had insights and ideas after each one, I would just end up feeling more and more shit about myself, because all it did was compounded those feelings of anxiety, right? It was like I was taking one step forward and two steps back, because I just ended up in the same loop. I would do the thing, I would feel negative emotions, I'd try to change them, and I'd then feel more disappointed in myself, because I think, why are you feeling this way? You should know better than this. And then I beat myself up again. And all that happened is I was fighting fire with fire, right? Creating this internal conflict. And despite all the self-work, I just began to hate myself even more and feel worse about myself. I was thinking I should know better than this. I actually felt better on the days that I wasn't doing this self-improvement. And it was only really here that I was then able to kind of realize that, life is going to consistently tell us, show us that we're bad. Right? Whenever you go on social media, whenever you read the news, whenever you see these influencers, there's always something we should or shouldn't be doing, right? You're lazy, or you work too hard. You shouldn't have these thoughts. You shouldn't judge that person in this way. You shouldn't do this. You should do that. Like, we can't win, right? So what does this mean? That we just shouldn't work on ourselves? Well, no. But when we become too attached to any identity, it just keeps us stuck and unable to navigate through life. Like, have you ever noticed how sometimes, like, spiritual people are the worst people, right? They almost develop this like spiritual ego, right? Where they judge others of like, oh, these people are so unenlightened. And you get this kind of woke culture, right? Who just judge everyone other than themselves. And it's crazy. And that's an identity thing. That's what happens when we identify with anything. So for all of this, any of this, right? And this applies to everything I'm going to say today, take it with a pinch of salt, right? When you learn something, if you read something, if you're doing any of this self-development on the moment, this self-work, this meditation, just take it with a pinch of salt. Let the ideas flow through you. Nothing is right or wrong, right? Even this. It's like that quote from Bruce Lee, right? Like being like water. You just have to be able to flow with this. If you're trying to self-improve or get better, don't do it to improve, because again, there is nothing to improve. If you're going to read books, read to discover something, read to challenge your existing beliefs, to dislodge those beliefs. Because remember, there is nothing to add, only to take things away. So if anything, if you're doing any of this reading, do it to dislodge something, right? Do it to remove something. Don't beat yourself up thinking you're not enough, because there was nothing to add in the first place. And all of this kind of, I guess, this realization of, good, bad, and fighting fire with fire is what led me on to my next realization, which was good and bad are ultimately just constructs that we've invented, right? This fucking guy. It's so true, though. Like, there is nothing inherently good or bad, and it's only thinking that makes it so. I liken this to the animal kingdom, right? I find it horrifying at times, but it's literally the most complex thing we know, right? Our species, the animal species, billions of species, different species existing in perfect harmony. I remember reading once about how, humans, we all hate bees, right? But if we killed all the bees, then we'd likely end up losing all the plants that the bees usually pollinate. And then eventually all the wild animals that eat those plants would also struggle to find food. And then this would just create over time a ripple effect. And we would probably just wipe out the entire population from one thing, from one, annoying little insect, as far as we're concerned, right? And that's the thing. Everything, even the things that are unspeakable in this life, is often serving a purpose that we just can't see. And here's the thing, to us and our human concepts of good and bad, again, the animal kingdom, it seems horrendous. If you've ever watched David Attenborough, you'll know, you've seen these things, like kids being eaten by their own parents and predators and prey, but it all exists in a perfect state of balance, from the trees and the plants to the animals. It's all in this perfect homeostasis. And without that fine balance, the world would cease to exist. It's crazy. And, this is the biggest problem, right? We think we know something. We think we know how this world works. We think we know what's good for us. And in reality, we have no idea. The universal forces in play, this fine balance that is keeping the world alive and sustained. We just have no idea, what invisible forces are at play, or what should or shouldn't be, or what is good and bad. It comes back to that picture, right? We just can't see the bigger picture and the forces that are at play. And, here's the interesting thing. When you look at how the brain works, how we perceive events, right? The perception of what these events mean, or any event means, is literally created within our heads, right? Based on past beliefs or past experiences. That's why two people can see exactly the same thing and react very differently. It's like if you have a belief that all BMW drivers are dicks, you're probably going to have a very visceral reaction when you see a BMW. You might even avoid them, right? You might keep a distance from them, or you might try to, retaliate, whatever. But if I don't, it's going to create a very different feeling in me. But if you do, all these hormonal changes are happening in your body as well, right? The brain is sending all these chemical reactions, fight and flight's going to start up. It's going to start dumping all these stress hormones in your body, literally all from this perception that we have created in our head based on past beliefs, experiences, or what we've been told. None of it is inherently true. None of it. Even the things we read in books, even things that scientists tell us. Scientists are being proven wrong every flipping day, every year. None of us know anything. We're all just trying to figure this out, right? It's the same thing, It makes you realize nothing or nobody can make you angry or sad. It's like, oh, this person makes me so mad. It's like, no, your perception is what's making you mad. The way you relate to that person is what's making you mad. Your partner or your friend or family member could do the same thing to somebody else and they'd probably be completely unfazed. It's because of the relationship you have with that person, the history that you have with that person, the way you see that person, the way you perceive what that person said or did. Different cultures, this is a crazy thing as well about cultures, right? When you think, like, some cultures can come across very rude to others. So you might see someone and think, oh, they're so rude and arrogant. And somebody else, it's perfectly normal. It's a perfect example of how our perceptions are literally creating our entire reality. There is nothing good or bad. And just, remember, it comes back to this. You have no idea the beauty of what's actually being painted, right? You might look back and think, oh, I wish I got into a relationship with that person, or I wish I got that job, or I wish I landed this high paying career abroad. But for all you know, you might have got on a flight to go to that new job, that career you've just landed, and been in a plane crash or been hit by a drunk driver on your way to work. You will never know what the alternative would have been. All of these regrets we have in life, all of these things we think are bad, oh, the bad thing happened, I wish that happened. You will never, ever know. We think we know something is good or bad. We have no flipping idea. Please remember this. The universe can seem harsh and cruel and a scary place to be in sometimes, but we just never know the forces at play, and how the tiniest actions, we don't know what it's creating, and how a lot of the time all of this may be working in our favor even if we can't see it right now. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but I really love this story, and I just really wanted to, it's a very quick story, and I think it's very, very powerful, and it illustrates this perfectly, about a Chinese farmer. So once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. And that evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate, and they said, oh, we're so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is the most terrible, unfortunate thing. And the farmer said, well, maybe. And then the next day, the horse came back and brought 7 other wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came back and said, oh, wow, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You've got 8 horses. You're so lucky. And the farmer said, maybe. And then the next day, his son tried to ride and break in one of the horses. And while riding it, he was thrown off and broke his leg. And the neighbors came around and said, oh, dear, that was awful. And the farmer said, maybe. And the next day, the conscription officers from the army came around to conscript people into the army. And they ended up rejecting his son because he had a broken leg. And again, all the neighbors came around and said, oh, isn't that amazing? You're so lucky. And again, he just said, maybe. It's it's unlikely we're ever going to react like that, right? And this is the thing. We're all human. We're always going to have reactions to things in the moment. But if you take anything from this, just try to kind of remember that we don't know. I do it all the time, right? I always react to things. Always. Whenever I hear bad news or what I think is bad news or good news, of course, I'm going to react to it. But I always try to remind myself, well, actually, I have no flipping idea. You literally just don't know. So, just try to remind yourself of that whenever anything happens. Because it was really like through this and, through kind of observing and experiencing that in my own life and seeing all of these events and, all these bad situations that were happening and feeling like I was constantly, fighting with life, which led me on to my next breakthrough, which was that everything we want from life is already inside of us, like literally. And it comes back to, what I was saying with the brain. All of these things, all these perceptions are created within us. I don't know if any of you know Joe Dispenza, fascinating studies that he's done on the mind. And, over the past kind of 6-7 years now, I've started to learn more about the brain and about neuroscience and, started to experience these things for myself through like meditation. I realized that I could feel the most profound joy just from sitting, right? Without having anything happen to me. which was a really kind of bizarre thing. And, when you look, a lot of you are probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We only really need the physiological elements to survive, right? Food, water, air, rest, security, and stability. Once those are taken care of, we're good. Everything else is just wants. So all these things, the house, the car, family, the money, these are all just things. They don't actually give us anything, right? They can't give us anything. What we want is the feeling that they give to us. And this isn't to say, by the way, that those things are bad. It's great to want these things. The problem is we've confused the thing for the feeling that we actually want. It comes back to this, right? What we want is those feelings that are created from the perception that we have of things. And the problem is, because all of our senses are all outward facing, we end up confusing the external physical world for the internal feeling we actually want. I do this all the time. I always see things I want, and then I'm like, it's so annoying, I can't have that thing. And then I remind myself, actually, it's just that feeling that I want. So please remember this. Like, we think we want the thing, but what we actually just want is the feelings, right? That's literally all it is. And this led me on to my fourth breakthrough. And this is possibly the most important one of all of these, right? And that's that life is simply just a mirror reflection of how we feel about ourselves. I think this is such a powerful image. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are in any given moment. And this has just proven out to be so true. And this was one of the biggest shifts I have seen in my life. And I really want to emphasize this. If you take anything away from this, please let it be this. Because, if you're in a state where you don't like yourself, you feel useless, the world is going to seem like a very nasty and hostile place and will mirror those things back to you. You'll just see more and more bad, and it will confirm that. Life will literally confirm that for you. And, this is what it comes down to. The relationship you have with yourself sets a tone for literally every other relationship that you have, right? Relationships to circumstances, relationships to people, relationships to situations. It all boils down to that inner relationship that you have. And look, I just want to say here, nobody can tell you how to do this. Some people, have to journal. Some people have to fix broken relationships. Like, the more you start going inwards, like we talked about earlier with self-awareness, the more you're going to uncover, the more you're going to begin to remove that old baggage. No book, no course, no best friend, no guru can tell you how to fix the relationship with yourself. You are the closest person to yourself you will ever have in your life. This is the uncomfortable work that you need to do. Nobody, no book or no thing is going to do this for you. Trust me, I tried. I tried so hard. I tried to fill it with all the books and all the meditations and all the courses and all the, coaches and mentors and teachers in the world. Nobody else can do this work for you, but please don't underestimate this, because it's like just building, a house on shaky foundations. Anything else you try to do here will just fall apart if you don't focus on this relationship with yourself. Okay. And really, this is just about how we see ourselves, right? When you look in the mirror, how do you see ourselves? And I realized this for myself. Like, when I looked in the mirror, this is what I saw. I was just, all of these things I was doing, I was basically just putting lipstick on a pig, right? I hated myself. I was using all of the books and the courses and stuff and the self-development to just tart myself up. But when it was just me, I saw someone I didn't like. And over time, from, practicing self-awareness and from, continuing that process, you start to listen to those kind of inner thoughts, right? It's the things that you say to yourself when you're not even consciously aware that you're saying it, that begin to dictate your life. This is crazy, and this is one of the most profound things that I've gained from meditation. And again, it's literally taken me like 10 years to get to this stage where every single year, you know every time I start to become more and more aware, and I start to hear things, little things where it's like that you just say flippantly, that you say unconsciously to yourself when something happens, and you say, no, my luck, yeah, it's probably flipping. Those little things, they are literally shaping your life. And these are things that are completely shaping your reality and how you interact with the world. The things you will or won't do, the actions you will or won't take, it all comes down to that internal dialogue, right? It's such a powerful thing and such an important thing to watch that, to observe that, to become aware of that, because ultimately this is what we become. We become an accumulation of the things that we've experienced or heard or been told over the years. It literally took for my partner at the time to say to me, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Seriously. Like, at just a random moment in time. And I don't know why in this moment, because I've been told that a lot through my life, a lot. But it just, at the time she said it, it just clicked. And I thought, hang on. I was diagnosed with ADHD. And crazy this sounds, like this was only maybe 6 years ago or so, right? When I turned like 30, I had forgotten that when I was a kid in primary school, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was in denial about it, I think. So I bought this book, and this book was a total game changer for my relationship with myself, because I spent so long thinking I was broken. I realized like a lot of my anxieties had actually stemmed from my ADHD, which I'd completely just forgotten about. And it allowed me to kind of almost like forgive myself. And it was a huge unlock toward my journey of building that relationship with myself and accepting myself. But remember, my journey isn't yours. I can't tell you how to fix your relationship with yourself. Maybe it will take a breakup, maybe therapy, maybe something a partner says to you. Could be anything, it could be absolutely anything. But, even with all of that said, as you do start to go through this and you do start to go on this journey, you will begin to look at the good and the bad things within you, right? By watching these clouds, and you'll start to slowly but surely remove the loads that you've been carrying and repair those things and be able to start making peace when you look at these things again, when you look at them objectively, without attachments, without judging this is good and this is bad, and just making peace with it. Slowly but surely that relationship will fix. If you're using some self-awareness practice right now, meditation, as a judgment to say, oh, you shouldn't be feeling this, but you should be feeling this, your relationship with yourself is never going to improve. Never. And just remember this as well, like when you're going through this journey, your brain will fight for familiarity. And this is crazy, right? Even with my anxiety, like I don't want my anxiety. But even when I was starting to undo those shackles, what you have to understand here about the brain, and this is something I've come to realize from reading and learning about neuroscience and how the brain works, the brain is just trying to protect us. Right? If you're used to feeling anxious, when you start to remove those feelings, the brain is terrified because it clings to its sense of self. So if you start changing, even if it's objectively for the better, when you do something new, it will throw up all the reasons and it will try and trick you into rationalizing, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, this is bad, because it's losing its sense of self. Remember, it's not because your brain hates you, because you can easily here fall into this beating yourself up again. Oh, my stupid brain, why is it doing this? No, your brain's fine. It's just doing what it does. It's trying to protect you, right? But what you have to remember is who you think you are isn't fixed. This is the crazy thing. There's a fascinating book by Maxwell Maltz called Psycho-Cybernetics. Really, really amazing book. And, cybernetics is basically about almost like a thermostat, right? It's about systems. It's about you kind of have an input and you've then got like a baseline level, and the system will always reset back to that baseline. And Psycho-Cybernetics talks about how this works on our psychology. If we don't see ourselves in a certain way, even if we try to improve, eventually we're going to self-sabotage. It's a really, really fascinating insight, and something that you just need to be aware of and watch out for. Ultimately, this is all just about shifting the balance, right, over time through these self-awareness practice, through this reset of shifting that balance of what is currently unconscious to making that more conscious. Because when you make something conscious, you can make peace with it. Again, it's not that you want to get rid of it, because getting rid of it, you're making it wrong. And when you make it wrong, you're fighting fire with fire, and that only damages the relationship you have with yourself. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Please understand this. This is just about being able to see more and accept more. The more you see and the more you accept, the less control it has over to you. If you start to bring things up and try to fight them, they're going to control you. You're putting more fire on the fire. And another crazy paradoxical thing about self-acceptance and self-love is it actually, what I found is it creates the opportunity for you to truly love others, right? Not the superficial, I love you if kind of love, but like true compassion towards others. Because when you look inside more often and you become aware of your own flaws and insecurities, you realize everyone you know is dealing with their own traumas and insecurities, right? Even the ones who smile the widest, right? Even the people who seem confident, or the people you think are total assholes, right? That person who cut you up, who dumped you, who mugged you, right? Maybe these people who do terrible things and have done terrible things to you. And you might say, oh, but Tom, they don't even care, or they're just a total narcissist. Well, maybe they are, but they're just broken little children, right? That's all they are. They're broken little children, everyone, no matter what they've done to you in your past. And this isn't about justifying or making it okay, no. But the fact is, we're all just these broken little children. I hurt so many people when I was younger, right, back in the day. Some people probably hate me. And I didn't see it in myself. I didn't see these things in myself until my panic attack. But now when I look back at myself and I can own that in myself, I realize I was just scared. It took me a lot of time as well when I was trying to fix that relationship myself to accept these parts of me. Initially, I felt awful and I wanted to hide those parts of me. It took me a long time to be able to accept this. But again, when you realize that everyone has these things, my last relationship, it was very confronting for me. She triggered the parts of me I felt insecure about within myself. And that was such a gift. I always used to think like she always wanted things to be perfect and orderly and everything to have to be, super organized. And I felt like, someone with ADHD, I felt like I was being attacked, right? Like it was just, oh, I can't do anything right. But then I realized she had to do those things to survive, right? They were coming from a place of insecurity for her. And the more you start to see these things in yourself, the more you start to realize and see those same things in others. We all have this sense of I, which is shaped around our traumas and our experiences in life. And we like to think our I, our view of the world, our beliefs are better than anyone else's. And look, we're all human. I don't think we're ever going to get to the stage where we just don't react to anything. Again, this isn't the goal. The goal isn't to never react and just be this Zen Buddhist monk who's always at peace. No, you're going to react. You're going to get angry. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get sad. But every moment, every day, you'll get better at witnessing your own reactions to others as exactly that, just reactions. And the more you practice your own awareness and begin to accept and heal those things within you through accepting them, the quicker you'll forgive. Because again, if you see parts of you you don't like and you haven't accepted, when you see those things in others, they are going to be very, very triggering for you. So the more you can accept in yourself, the more you will be able to accept others, regardless of what they do to you, how they treat you, how they may look, how you may perceive them. Cool. So now that we've hit the reset button and we've covered those, I wanted to cover those kind of realizations first, because I just think they're very, very fundamental principles in terms of when I was looking at putting this together. I just thought these are perspectives that I've gained that I wouldn't be able to see life in the same way if it wasn't for those. So now that we've covered that, let's get on to kind of orientation, right? This is more of the fun part now. How do we get to creating the life that we want to create? Right? Or at least start going in that direction. Again, this isn't about creating a perfect life, because ultimately our lives are just a series of moments, right? Every single minute that's ticking by, and we only have a finite amount. So the first thing we need to do in this orientation phase is to audit where that time is going, where those moments are going right now. Here's some crazy, scary stats, right? I mean, the average screen time when I last looked was like 6 hours a day, 42 hours a week. That's 20% of that time just someone spent on their phone, right? It's absolutely crazy. We've got 168 hours in a week, and 20% of it is going toward being on the phone. This is even worse. Like when you look over the years, 9 years, and I'm guilty of this. Again, this isn't a judgment call. It's just something we need to be aware of. And it's also not just your phone, right? Maybe you're actually really good with tech, but it's also who you're spending your time with, or how you're spending your time, because how and who you're spending your time with is ultimately what you're going to become and how your life will be shaped. This isn't a judgment call. This is just about bringing awareness to it and asking the questions. Does how I'm spending my time align with where I want to be? So what can we do? Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is to do an audit on your own time, right? Look at your calendars, your work calendar, your social calendar. See what you're spending time, who you're spending it with. Have a look on your phone. Look at the apps. What apps are consuming the most of your time? Where is that screen time going? There's a fantastic app I got recently on my laptop called Rise, and it basically just tracks all the websites and things you're on. It categorizes them all for you. So I can literally see, like, across my phone, across my personal work calendar, all of these things. I can see where my time's going. It's really, really fascinating, and it will break it down into all these chunks for you. And then what you want to do, and I'll link to this below this video, start creating an audit of your time. I'll link to this Google Sheet document that you can download, and you can just start plugging in these numbers and see where is your time currently going, right? Because it's kind of scary. And I always used to say, like, I never have time, and I didn't realize how much time I was spending on junk. So now you know where you are right now. The question becomes, where do you want to be? And look, before we get into this, I just want to get this out of the gate. Fuck finding your purpose, right? I hate this quote. Find your purpose, find your calling in life. I think it's complete BS. And it's what keeps most people stuck. I'm in a career now. I've created a business in marketing. I had no flipping inclination to do marketing whatsoever. It just gave me a remote interest. I was interested in psychology and human behavior, and I've always been very geeky, and I love tech. And I put those two things together, and I was like, let me give it a try. And now I have a genuine passion for it, right? You cultivate passions in life. You don't find purposes. Some people are lucky enough to be kind of born with this talent, and it becomes their calling and their purpose and their passion, dancing and the arts and whatever. Most of us don't have that. We just have to go out and find it. Just finding things that take our interest. Just follow what makes you happy. That's why I put follow your joy. Follow whatever you're kind of even just remotely interested in. These vague interests you have. This isn't about making, the perfect life. It's just about thinking, how do you want your life to look? Who do you want to be spending time with? Who makes you happy? How do you want to be spending that time? Again, there's no good or bad here. This isn't a judgment call about what you should be doing with your life. That's entirely up to you. Whatever brings you joy, whatever brings you happiness, look back at that audit and say, how do I want this to look? Right? One of the best things you can do here, you might have seen this before. Some of you might have one already. Create a vision board. Write down how you want your life to look. How do you want your perfect day to look? This is one of the exercises I went through for myself. I literally created like a 62-page document, and I would update this constantly on how I want my life to look. It's like, without this, it's like getting in a car and driving with no navigation and then wondering why you never get to where you want to be, when you haven't taken the time to articulate how you actually want your life to look. Write down what your perfect day looks like, so you at least have somewhere to get to. And again, you don't make this perfect. This, even if you just have a vague inclination of how you'd like things to be, write that down and use this, see it as fun. Don't make this some big, scary thing. These things can change over time. Okay. This is, I went through this whole process. I would literally go through everything from when I first started the business, we had nothing. Right. And I would literally create these fake images, right, of we had 60 YouTube subscribers at the time, and or we wanted to hit our first 100K in revenue. So I'd get these fake images on Google. I put them on the vision board, right, to hit our first 100K or 158K. 60 YouTube subscribers. So I actually doctored this image. I scrubbed out the 60 and I put 1,000 in there. That was the goal. I was like, yes, if we can get this, it'll be good. And then over time, we've blown past those figures, right? From the YouTube in the business. And what happens? You just create new ones. You create bigger and bigger goals. Whatever you want, however stupid it might seem to you, right? Or how stupid other people might say it is, go after it. Right? Don't let anyone tell you what your life shouldn't or should look like. It's, when I look at some of the things, when I look back at my original vision board, and even where I'm living now, even how my life is right now, like the freedom I have, being able to have control of my time. This was even before I'd started the business. It is scary. It is actually scary how much your life can change when you create a clear vision like this. And look, one of the most difficult things is procrastination. This is something I struggled with a lot. The easiest way to overcome this is tiny little baby steps. Even if you just find 30 minutes, when you do that time audit, you find 30 minutes a day, that will add up a lot over time. And just break it down into small chunks. Right? Look at whatever goal you have and just go through it and, chunk that down into tiny little small steps. Ask yourself, what is one thing that you can do today to go toward that vision you have? Maybe it's Googling a business idea. Maybe it's looking up those dance lessons. Maybe it's sending that text to that old friend you want to be reunited with. Whatever tiny little first step you can take. Don't look at this massive path you have ahead of you. Break it down into chunks. Okay. Now, this is a great opportunity. Now that you've got that, to come back here, there's another tab on this that says desired and desired time allocation. And this can be quite triggering, right? Because what you'll find is when you look at where you are right now and where you want to be, do your current actions really align to what you want from your life, right? And a lot of the time, the reason we don't move forward toward our goal, it's not because we don't know what to do, we don't know the steps to take. It's because we don't think we're worthy. We don't, there's maybe some deeper insecurities there, and this all comes back to self-love, right? Like we talked about before. It's such a fundamental thing to all of this. Or maybe right now you just, you don't have the energy, right? You're too exhausted, you're too tired. And we'll be coming on to this shortly when we start talking about the pillars. But right now, just start building that initial step, right? And also, please, please, please remember this. Like the seasons, people change. We all change, right? Give yourself the grace and permission to change over time. Follow where your heart wants to take you in any given moment, in any given year. Because I promise you, it will change. We all go through this. Maybe it's simply just about creating a direction. It doesn't have to be a final destination. Please understand that. Okay, don't worry about it changing. You might get in that car and reach your destination and then find you want to move forward to the next one. Maybe one year you want to, hustle, start a business. Maybe the next year you don't care about business. You want to start a family. Remember, no attachments, pinch of salt. Don't let these visions become another identity and another prison cell, because it's just going to trap you and it's just going to end up damaging that relationship with yourself again. This is what this is all really about, right? So when you look back at your life on your deathbed, you can know that you just did what felt right to you in every moment. It's not about looking at, oh, look at what I've accomplished. Who cares? If you felt good about what you've done, great. If you know that you made the effort, you made every effort to do the things you wanted to do, that is a life well lived. Again, this isn't about any kind of, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. You should do whatever the hell you want to do, right? Whatever the hell you want to do. Now, you might be asking right now, well, this is all great, Tom, but I've tried this, and how the hell do I keep these habits and stick to them? I've tried these things, I can't do them, I don't have the energy. Well, this is what we're going to be coming on to with the final part of the foundational pillars, right? These 3 pillars. And this is ultimately about preparing the soil and making it fertile to make it as easy as possible for you to flourish and be in a positive state more often. Basically helping you to rebalance the things that are zapping your energy so you can actually find the time to focus on those things you want to do. Because trust me, I went through this, and I went through so much rigmarole trying to do these things and constantly finding myself struggling this uphill battle, right? And there's really 3 main things here. First is the physical, then it's the mental, and then I'll come on to the 3rd one afterward. So the physical, this is ultimately about our body, right? How are we treating our body? This body that we have that controls all of this kind of chemical plant, contains our brain, it contains our organs, everything is contained within this body of ours. I remember hearing this amazing analogy once, right? You got like the most rarest, most expensive, valuable machine in the world, right? Like this, let's say this Bugatti, I don't know what this is, a Bugatti Veyron or something. If you had this car, you would be looking after it every single day, keeping it clean, taking it for all its servicing and things like that. Pride and joy, right? Whereas our bodies are literally the most complex machines on this whole planet. And you can't just go out and buy another one if it breaks. If you break it, it's gone for good. Yet this is how we treat it, right? And I want to be very clear here. This isn't a judgment call. I still indulge all the flipping time. I fall off the bandwagon all the time. All this is about is be mindful, right? If you trash that car every day, it's going to break. If you take it racing every other weekend on a track, cool. It'll probably last you a long time. And if you're, treating it well outside of that, amazing, right? But there are certain things that we can do. And this is, one of the crazy things about the world we live in today. We got all this, all these amazing health podcasts and self-development podcasts. It's great on one hand, but all it does, it's like, what I mentioned earlier, you end up just feeling like a failure. Right. And the crazy thing is the stress that we feel from listening to these things and, knowing the information, they're not doing it. It's probably one of the biggest, that stress is probably one of the biggest factors to reducing our overall health and sleep and everything. That's the irony behind this, right? We listen to all these books and podcasts and we don't do it. And then we get stressed. And then that stress ends up doing more damage than any of these things would ever do. So what I want to do is just, because I've tried so many of these different things, I want to walk through some of the things that have had the most fundamental impact for me. These might not be the same for you, but hopefully you can take something from this. One of the really, really powerful shifts in my life was getting a health tracker. So you've got to think, this is Whoop. I've also got an Aura Ring, lots of different things you can use. But this was such a wake-up call for me. And it completely changed my relationship with alcohol. Even after this anxiety phase, I would still drink a lot. I would have a couple of beers in the evening, not every evening, maybe once or twice a week. And I thought, that's only a couple of beers. It's only a couple of beers at the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. And what I realized from looking at this, and what it actually shows you, is how much different behaviors, whether it's, late meals or alcohol or, adding sugar, what impact that has on your recovery in each day. And being able to see things like your respiratory rate, your blood oxygen levels, your heart rate variability, how these things can be negatively impacted from them. That was scary, being able to see that in real time. And it completely changed and shifted that for me. Might not work for you, but it's something that proved to be very, very powerful for me, because it's just a vice. These things become a vice. And it's like anything. And this was the really interesting thing about it, actually. When I did start to cut out alcohol, I still drink now. I quit recently for about 6-7 months and I've started again now. But I've completely stopped drinking when I'm alone. I will only now drink if I'm going out, or if I'm seeing friends or whatever it might be. And even then, a lot of the time I choose not to. And it's been a really interesting exercise because it's allowed me to, when I am at home sometimes, I feel like, I wish I could have a beer. And then I've learned, because of this, because I'm now conscious of it, again, that self-awareness kicks in. It's like, why do you want a beer? Why? And I'm able to tune into that feeling of discomfort. Okay, it's because I'm feeling anxious about that. Let me dive into that a little bit more. So this was really valuable for me because it allowed me to kind of tap into these sensations that were coming up with in the body, but not go for that kind of initial, it's only a beer, let me go grab one. It allowed me to pause and question without kind of beating myself up, and without kind of feeling like, and getting all annoyed at myself and trying to fight and discipline. It was a choice. And this gave me that choice from a good place of actually, no, I want to feel good tomorrow. I want to be in a good place tomorrow. Another thing that was mind-blowing for me is blood sugar levels. I am not diabetic, so caveat here. So if you're like, I'm not diabetic, blood sugar levels don't matter to me. They do. Trust me, they do. It's absolutely crazy. There's this fascinating studies by a lady called Jessie in Chorpsay. I'm probably butchering her name. Wrote this amazing book called The Glucose Revolution, I think, and tiny little things like how eating fiber before you eat anything else in a meal, so just eating veggies, can completely, well, not completely, but can really flatten out a glucose curve. And when you have these glucose spikes, what it does, like you'll see here, is it will literally send your insulin levels, your glucose levels, below baseline. So that's why you eat something and then you feel really lethargic, and then you need to eat more because you feel lethargic, and you end up on this roller coaster. No wonder you don't have the energy. No wonder you feel so exhausted. And I didn't believe this when I saw it, so I tried it for myself. I actually got myself a blood glucose monitor, and I got a Zoe health testing kit. There are loads of these different health testing kits you can get, and they basically monitor how your body metabolizes different foods, right? Because all of our bodies are different. That's why most health advice you hear is complete BS, right? Because everyone's body metabolizes things differently. These things were a game changer for me. They're so fascinating because they allowed me to see how the things I was eating every day were having such a fundamental impact on the way I felt. Like literally. And the studies that are happening right now on things like the microbiome, right? You have hundreds of millions of nerve cells in your gut. And the gut microbiome is responsible for creating neurotransmitters like serotonin, right? That controls your mood, right? It's the same chemical that antidepressants boost is created from within your gut, and the things you're putting into your gut are down regulating these, right? It's wild that, like this stuff, like when you look into it, they keep people drugged up with these antidepressants, but then eating the food that are literally down regulating these neurotransmitters, these hormones like serotonin. It's crazy. There are things like, I won't get into this too much here, but there are things like sauerkraut, kimchi, any fermented unpasteurized like yogurts, like kefir, kombucha. Mainly, like, this is just about eating variety of foods, like whole foods, single ingredient foods, vegetables. It makes such a profound difference to how you feel every day. And so just starting to understand your body, make an effort to invest in these things to understand your body, because it can literally change your life. I thought this was all BS to begin with. I thought you could battle through this, but this made such a profound impact on my ability to focus and to start taking control over my life, right? And for those visions and those goals that I had set to actually start coming to fruition. And for any of you, watching any of these like health influencers, and you're seeing all this like crazy news things, just one other thing to remember, like, Google these studies. If someone's citing a study, Google it. It's baffling to me how much of the time you Google them and they're not even saying what the people are claiming it says, or there's all these confounding variables that just make it complete garbage. And also, even looking at who these studies are commissioned and funded by is a real eye-opener, because a lot of these studies that say like ultra-processed foods or artificial sweeteners are safe and good for you are funded by companies like Mars and Coca-Cola, like the biggest proponents and sellers of ultra-processed foods and artificial sweeteners. It's scary. There's a fascinating book I read, if you wanted to dive more into this, by I can't remember what the guy's name is, but it's called Ultra-Processed People. And he literally tears apart some of these like studies that have been done on processed foods, ultra processed foods, and how they say all these things are safe, but they are literally funded by the companies that are selling, mass producing these ultra processed foods. And and how the studies, most of the time, people just don't read them. They do not hold up under scrutiny. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all of that, because look, the thing with all of this is it's a bit like, oh God, like where the hell do I start with all of this, right? Let's not overcomplicate this. There's literally three pillars here, right, to this physical aspect: move, rest or sleep, and eat a variety of whole foods. That's as complex as it needs to be, right? With movement, whatever you want to do, dance, hike, yoga, weightlifting, prancing around your living room, I don't care, whatever it is. Sleep, just start scheduling time, right? Get a Whoop, get some form of get an Aura ring, get some form of, most iPhones, or if you've got an iWatch, they have these built-in things to track your sleep. Monitor, make notes, journal. What are the things you're doing the day before, and how is that impacting your sleep? Even if you can get like 1 extra hour of deep sleep, even if your total sleep time doesn't change, but by improving your quality of sleep, let's say because you find out that, like for me, eating a meal an hour earlier, your last meal, can have a significant impact on your ability to get more deep sleep. That's going to have a profound impact on how you feel the next day. Food, don't overcomplicate this. Just basic, the food that is out there, it's like just real food, single ingredient food, veggies, eggs, like whatever. I don't, whatever, diet, maybe you're vegan, maybe you're this, maybe you're that, just eating real foods. That you can't really go wrong when you're eating real foods. And please remember, this is not about being perfect. live your life, right? Live your life. This is just about being able to take control of your life. You choose. You choose when you want to indulge, when you want to binge, but just be aware of these things so you can start to take back control and do the things you want to do, because it's going to allow you to operate your best. The next pillar is the mental, right? Because a lot of the last step will already have transformed your mind, and this is really just about the inputs that we're putting into our mind, because ultimately what we're feeding it is what's going to create the output. What you put into your mind is what you're going to get out of it. And this is one of the crazy things about the mind. Actually, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but the reticular activating system, it is literally bonkers what this does. It's the same. It basically is what's responsible for filtering out information, right? There's so much in the world around us. Obviously, our brain can't process everything, so it has to filter out what it gauges to be important and what it gauges to not be important. You can actually control this. You can tap into this. It's the same reason that when somebody says, "Oh, you never see yellow cars," and then you see yellow cars everywhere, because someone's mentioned it, someone's planted that seed. So think about how damaging what we consume every day can be. These things are literally shaping our reality. Imagine seeing this page every day, right? I don't know if any of you guys follow this page, MD Motivator. It's a great channel. It's just always like, doing kind things for people. It's such a beautiful channel, whether it's fake, whether it's set up, I don't really care. It's just beautiful. It's just such beautiful reactions. And then compare it to something like this. Right. I love Russell Brand. Like, I really appreciate what he's doing, but a lot of his titles these days, they do just strike fear. It's kind of the complete opposite of what he's all about, of like spreading love and joy. And it's like, look at this. How can you see this? And just like, it just spreads fear, right? That's all it does. So it's really important to be mindful of like the things that we're consuming. Our brains are prehistoric. They just go based on what they're being fed. So one of the one of the best hacks that I found, and this literally allowed me to kind of change how I saw reality. It was mind blowing. It's like the Matrix. You can literally change how you see reality just by controlling your social algorithm. Because let's be honest, most of us, maybe you aren't, but most of us are addicted to our phones. We spend a hell of a lot of time on our phones. So this stuff is shaping how we see reality. So one of the best things you can do, if you see something that maybe you're addicted to it right now. So try again, through self-awareness, you'll start to see, why am I liking this? Why do I read this stuff? I'm just scaring myself. When you catch yourself doing it, one of the most powerful things you can do, tap the 3 little dots at the top. It'll bring this up. Click the hide button, and then you'll get a notification. You'll stop seeing posts like this, or you'll see posts like this lower in your feed. And when you keep doing this, you're training the algorithms, because what you have to remember about these social algorithms is they all want to keep you on the platform for as long as possible. Right? So if you tell it, I don't like these things, and then you start liking things that are positive, it will just show you the positive stuff. And now all I see in my social feeds is positive, beautiful, good news. I don't even see bad news anymore. It is, and it has literally transformed. When I go out into the world, people are like, why are you so happy? Why wouldn't I be happy? The world's flipping great. Oh, the world's coming to an end. Oh, great. Well, at least for the 35 years I have spent here, I've enjoyed the hell out of it. Well, that's not entirely true, but from the start of my life. But this is the whole point, right? Even if the world is going to end next week, flipping out, at least make the next week enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, Putin's going to blow up the world. Great. I want to flip and live until he does. Like, just honestly, these things, it's such an important thing. Please make an effort to do this. Like, I know sometimes it can be addictive to look at that bad news, but this is such a powerful shift that you can take. This is the same on any platform. So you go on YouTube, you can click on the 3 little dots, you can say not interested. You can do it on Facebook, you can do it on TikTok, you can do it on all of these. Next thing, this one might be controversial, But turn off the damn news. All it does is keep you in a state of fear. Literally nothing good no use has ever come to me from watching the news. If I've ever needed to know anything, I've been told about it, right? It just keeps me in a happy state. That's all it does. And another thing that I found as well, this was also a major breakthrough for me. Do not do this first thing in the morning. And by the way, I have an alarm on my phone, right? So I grab my phone always first thing in the morning. But what I did do that was a massive unlock for me is I set my phone now. So in the early hours of the morning, it goes into focus mode. Most phones have a focus mode and like do not disturb and everything. So I literally can't see any notifications. So no emails, no WhatsApps, no nothing I've received from the night before or that morning. I can't see them. Flipping great. Because what it means is you can start your day of intention. How you start your day is everything. You will know if you wake up to a bad email, a bad message, your day is going to be ruined. So this is just about starting your day with intention, right? It's not like you don't have to have like a particular routine in place or anything like that. Just do not disturb it for the first couple of hours of the day, whatever you can spare. Whatever you can spend that morning, even if you have to get up a bit earlier, just to start your day with intention. Listen to your favorite song, that song that makes you feel good. Music's powerful, right? Journal. Take time. This is something I do every morning, just writing the things. I journal, just stream of consciousness. I just journal exactly what I'm feeling, whether it's good, bad, negative, scared, fearful, happy, whatever. And then I also have another page where I write all the things I'm grateful for. And a habit I created for myself every morning when I fill up my water bottle, I literally look at my water and I say thank you. I say thank you so fucking much. So many people in this world don't have water. That's just a habit that I've had created for myself. Morning routines are one of the, I've tried so many flipping morning routines over the years. I've done everything, the cold showers, the breath work, the yoga, like a lot of it I still do, a lot of those things I still do, but this isn't about some morning routine. Like most of this, just find what puts you in a state of joy, whatever that is. Whether you sing to yourself in the mornings, I don't care. Like whatever it is, it's just about starting your day in a way that makes you feel good. So when you do turn on your phone and you do open up your emails, you're ready to deal with it because you primed yourself, right? That's what this is about. It's about starting your day right so you can prime yourself. You can be ready to face those things because otherwise it's just, if you don't prime yourself first, you're just at the mercy of everything else that happens that day. Again, this is another a great time to just journal and reflect, on how you feel from doing these things over time, seeing how these different habits affect you, that you implement. Remember, there's no size fits all thing here. And then the final rule on here on the mental aspect, I genuinely believe we're all natural born creators. Right? If all you're giving your brain is constant inputs, is constant consumption of content and things and movies and news and work and emails and whatever else, you're just going to burn out. Take the time to create something, anything, music, writing, maybe you're making something in a video game, Lego, whatever it is, just take time to shift that balance and create things. I promise you, you will start to feel so much better when you do. And remember, this isn't about trying to be always happy. It's about shifting the odds in your favor so you're more often in a positive state. Do not demonize those negative emotions. But you'll be amazed at how much of these negative feelings actually come from what we put into our body and mind without even realizing it. Cool. So the final pillar, this is the invisible part of yourself. And that's why there's nothing on it. It's, what some people call spirit, God, soul, everything, nothingness, oneness, cosmos, whatever, right? I don't care. Don't care what you call it. Everything and nothing simultaneously. It's our connection to that, to something greater than ourselves that needs to be nourished, right? And here's one of the best ways I've found of doing it. Look at kids. They're just in awe of everything. Fresh eyes, everything is new, everything's exciting to them. And when we get old, we think we know it all. And this is a problem because when we think we know something or someone, we stop looking. We stop being curious. We become closed off and resigned, and life loses its purpose, right? There's nothing left to know. Everything becomes miserable and, oh God, yeah, this is life is repetitive. We've lost our sense of wonder, right? Do something that makes you feel like a child every day, whatever that is. Intentionally, please make space for wonder and awe. This is something I had to really train myself to do. Like, when you're a kid and you see a bird, when someone tells you it's a bird, that's what you see. You no longer see this just amazing emergent experience of, oh wow, look at that, look at this. I genuinely believe our natural state is just of, state of being is just love, joy, and wonder, right? That's how kids come into this world. It's our natural state. And the more I've meditated over the years, the more I've started to dissolve this sense of self and this, kind of attachment to identities, the less I think I know, and the more I feel love and awe naturally. I literally go out on a walk, even in the most like rundown flipping council estates. And I'm just like, wow, look at these buildings. How old are they? I just end up in a state of like, oh, but it's something you have to intentionally practice. If you need help with this, go into a library, download Audible, and just download a book that interests you, or things like this. Like, these are incredible. Like, Stephen Bartlett's got one called Conversation Cards. This is one called Get Closer. These are cards that you can use with friends, family, that just have questions that help to connect us, like deep questions that we wouldn't normally ask people. And sometimes it's embarrassing to kind of ask things like, why the hell are you asking me that? Just go on Amazon and buy it. And you can just, it takes the awkwardness out of it. Maybe you don't normally do these things with your friend. Just I wanted to try something different. And then you don't have to feel weird about asking some weird, deep question that you wouldn't normally ask. It's come from a game, right? But it can make such a, you start to discover things about people that you never knew. Maybe even your partner that you've maybe been married to for years, a lot of the time they even don't know each other. One of the other things I love to do as well, just take time, find some time, like 20 minutes, in a day, and go and sit inside a coffee shop on a busy street and just people watch and just contemplate life. Don't judge. You're not looking at them and being like, oh, look at that. Just observe. Just observe them. Just watch them and just watch life unfolding. It's such a crazy, miraculous thing. And look, just a reminder here, if you're kind of struggling with this right now, like, we are literally this tiny flipping speck of dust floating in space. We're so minuscule. We really, really do think we know everything. That's just life. We don't flipping know shit. We literally know nothing, right? Now, this is a bit of a red pill, blue pill moment here, because I'm about to kind of go a little bit deep, and this might get a little bit esoteric and weird, but these are things that have really helped me to transform my relationship with reality and to find that joy. So, hey, if you're ready to come on this journey with me, let's do this. So I want to tell you about an experience I had with a 10-day silent meditation retreat I did, right? So this was 10 days, complete detox, right? You're not allowed to take pen and paper, books, phone, nothing, right? You have a bed, you have an alarm clock, you wake up at 4 a.m., you go to bed at 9 p.m., and you meditate. Complete silence. You can't talk to anyone. There's other people there, but there's no rules. Like, it's not like they're going to ban you, but you're discouraged from making eye contact from them even. And that might sound crazy, but the reason for that is because, we all, again, it's one of those things we feel it's like removing the cravings we have, for connection, like wanting someone to acknowledge that. It's about being with those feelings and starting to observe those within ourselves ultimately, right? And that's what it's about. And even, for any of the kind of non-spiritual among you thinking like, what the hell? Look, this is what ultimately happens when you begin to observe yourself. As you probably know, probably have heard, atoms, right? The building blocks of life, everything in the known universe, right? Cars, trees, everything is made up of tiny little particles and atoms. Our bodies are made up of billions of these tiny little atoms, and they're constantly dying and being reborn every second, meaning you are literally never the same person from one second to the next. You're literally a new person every second. This is wild, right? Quantum physics has done some, crazy findings, and all. I'm not going to get deep into that, but, read, study, look at these things in your own peril. It comes back to that curiosity. Life is fascinating, right? But anyway, meditation, through this process, through just observing yourself, and that's what you're doing when we're meditating. We're just observing the body, with the sensations within the body, right, without any distractions. And the first few days are torture, but then over time you literally start to feel these atoms, like the vibrations within your body. It's a wild experience, and you begin to realize that you are literally source energy, right? The same energy that makes up the universe, and that nothing is fixed or solid. Everything is in a constant state of change. All these particles and atoms, they're vibrating, they're constantly changing and dying and being reborn. And here's the thing, right? When you keep zooming out of anything, the idea of reality starts to fall apart, right? Even, from on a human level, like at a subatomic level, when you go down to these individual atoms, or even people, you look at a group of people, but then you zoom out enough and you see a city, and then you zoom out enough and you see the world, and then you zoom out and you see the universe, right? They all become, under different levels of magnification, they become one entity, right? We think our bodies are one single body. No, they're not. They're constructed of all these tiny little different things. So in that sense, everything, when people say, oh, we're all one, we're all connected. No, we literally are, under different levels of magnification. Like, where is the separateness in this picture? It's just a different level of magnification. That's all it is. And this was the most most mind-blowing, experience in that, because here I get this. Hearing this is kind of like, oh, flipping out, Tom, what the hell are you on? It's one of those things you kind of do have to like experience it, but hopefully this can just kind of maybe dislodge something in you a little bit and just get you thinking about it. But it's funny, right? Because when you start to realize this, it's like when we feel lack or we feel want for something, it's almost like the universe growing eyes, right? And seeing that new house and forgetting that everything it wants is already contained within it. It's the same with us. We're made up of exactly the same atoms and particles that form the universe. There is no separateness to us. It's just different levels of magnification. All of us are just these vibrational beings, right? Human brainwaves. We're all, they can measure these things. They can literally measure the kind of human aura, the energy, the vibration that our bodies send out. It's kind of wild. And I've come to realize, like, all of this, it's kind of like tuning a radio dial, right? Being in a state of wanting is going to create more wanting. If you want something, you're going to create more wanting, and that thing you want is never going to get closer. It's a law of resonance. Don't misunderstand this. This isn't some law of attraction woo-woo. People often talk about law of attraction, think I want to manifest this thing. You can't manifest anything. You, like, every minute of every day, you are manifesting. Most of us are just manifesting unconsciously. Like, whatever we're dialed into, that's what we're creating. There's no, manifest it, like being a good manifestor or bad. Like, every day we're all doing it. There's no such thing as like being a manifester. Like, we're all doing it. It's just how we are, It's those thoughts within ourselves. Again, it comes back to that. The conversations we're having ourselves, those things we're not aware of. This is dictating how we're feeling day to day. all comes back to that self-awareness piece, right? And why it's so important to make peace with yourself. If you've got negative thoughts, any of this, I know I've said this a million times about this, but I really want to drill this message home. Whatever it is, be okay with it. Please do not beat up any parts of yourself. Everything you're feeling, it's okay. You are perfect. Everything you're feeling, when you can start to understand that, you will start to embody this state, and you will start to tune into this state of being enough, of being happy, of being worthy, and things will start to come to you. It is mind-blowing. Like the way my life is now, it literally makes me emotional. I can't comprehend how I got so lucky to be able to live the kind of life I live. It's insane to me. It really is insane. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this guy, Masaru Emoto. Studies he's done are fascinating, right? It comes down to like vibrations, water consciousness. Did these amazing studies of where people would send intentions, like feel an emotion and look at water and speak those speak something and like feel those emotions, and they then observe the crystal patterns in the water afterward under a microscope, and you can literally see how it changed, just that energetic vibration, how it changed the flipping crystal formations in the water. Imagine what our feelings are doing to our body. Imagine what our feelings are sending out into the world, right? Into these things we can't see. We see like 0.001% of the world, right? On the electromagnetic spectrum. We barely see any of what reality actually is. We have no idea what is out there and how our thoughts and feelings are actually interacting with the world. If you want to go deep on this, these books completely blew my mind. Holographic Universe, Autobiography of a Yogi, and Reality Transurfing. These were literally mind-blowing for me if you're interested in diving down this rabbit hole. But anyway, I've gone on a lot now. I really, really hope this has been valuable. I just want to finish by kind of covering these like fundamental principles again. So again, the goal is not to feel better, but to get better at feeling. Good and bad, remind yourself this. Good and bad are just human constructs. Right and wrong, good or bad. We will never know if something is right or wrong or good or bad. We just won't. So whatever happens, take peace in knowing that. Everything we want is already inside us. It's literally created within us, right? And life is simply a mirror reflection of how we feel about ourselves. This is the most fundamental, this relationship with yourself. Again, if you take anything from this, please understand that it's not about taking these parts out and, finding your demons and destroying them. No, it's about accepting them. They're not going to go away. They're not going to go away. It's you. You're incredible. You're beautiful. You're that broken ceramic, and it's amazing. It's about accepting those things. And in my fucking secondary school year 7 attempt at a kind of diagram in a way that I thought would be helpful as a reminder, I've kind of tried to draw this out, but I think the self-awareness is that kind of underlying thing, right? And this, again, this isn't a goal. You're not going to become the super self-awareness person who's aware of everything. No, you're always going to go unconscious sometimes. It's going to happen, but you will start to build this out over time. This will become expanded, and this is what will allow you to, again, see those parts of you, not judge them, accept them. And that's where the self-love is created, and this will build over time. These feed into each other, right? When you have that self-love, it makes all of these easier, but also working on these elements make the self-love a hell of a lot easier as well. And then once you've got these things in place, that then allows you to move confidently in the direction of your goals, whatever that is, whatever direction you want to move in, whatever you want to get out of your life, whatever you want your life to look like. Set that orientation. It's going to change. Be okay with it changing. Again, don't be caught up in any of this. Please don't get, caught up in you having to be this way or having to be that way. Look, I may be wrong about all of this, right? And if you take one thing from today, like just one thing, please let it be this. Take this all with a pinch of salt. Again, because if we get caught up in anything, if you're thinking, oh God, I really need to do this, it completely goes against everything I'm trying to do here. Like, we just need to accept ourselves for how we are, however you're feeling right now, just, right now you are perfect. Whenever this is a really kind of powerful image I saw. Whenever we grasp anything too tightly, right? We try and hold we try and hold life in our hands. We try and hold these moments in our hands. Whenever we grasp anything too tightly, the way things are, whatever it is, we squeeze the life out of it. It's the same with people. It's the same with, ideas or how we think the world should be or what we want from life. We hold it lightly and cherish it and realize none of this is real. It's all made up and it's all a flipping miracle. But if we try to squeeze it too tightly, if we try to hold it, if we try to cling it, we end up destroying it and it will just fall through our hands. So just take this with a pinch of salt. Love yourself, love others, watch yourself. Wherever you are right now, it's okay. And I just hope that you can use these things and take these lessons and, really just make your life, just shift that balance. Again, this isn't about trying to be perfect. It's not about being happy all the time. No, fuck no. It's just about being at peace within yourself. So I really, really, really hope this has helped. I hope I haven't waffled on for too long, and I wish you all much love. And let me know. Please let me know how you found this. I would absolutely love if this is helping people. Blimey, I spent so much time on this, just racking my brains and thinking, oh, does this make sense? Does this go here? I'd love to hear your feedback. Please, if it's messy, if it's all over the place, let me know. If you found something remotely helpful, I'd love to know as well. And I'd love to try and make this better. I had to stop myself from going, I was like, oh God, maybe I should turn this into like loads of different things. I'd love to go into any of these areas more. If there's parts you guys want to know more about, whether it be the spiritual side, whether it be the meditation side, the self-love side, whether it be the pillars and, whatever, I love, the idea that somebody can just get one thing from this is so magical to me. And I would love to keep doing this if I can. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I'll try and link to any resources and citations that I've linked to as well below this, but also that time tracking document too, so you can go through that. It's a very, very powerful exercise in any of the tools and things I've mentioned along the way. But I really, really hope it's helped. And please let me know your thoughts.